Thank you, Haley, for having me. And thank you for all those who've attended all 3 days. I know some of you have attended each day of my presentation, and hopefully there's 2 things that I always promise. One, that you'll get one thing that you can walk away with. How many of you had one thing already walk away from the 2 days that I've spoken? Great, love it, awesome. You know, my goal is to see you, hear you, and give to you. So if I'm doing that, then I'm fulfilling my promise to Haley and bringing my hard-earned failures and successes to the table. The second promise that I have, guys, is that each one of you are at different parts of your business. Today's talk, I spoke on a Dallas stage in August, and it was really profound because not only were the women all at different stages, but there were men in there who needed to hear these 4 truths. I had one in particular come up, Kim, and he said, Charlene, it was so clear and to the point, and I was finally ready to hear it. So many of us are not ready to hear these things, but my invitation is that today to be open to not only receive it, hear it, but write it down. You are going to be able to take some of these truths and probably adjust it to what your certain circumstances are. But just remember, this is from my personal playbook. This has been from my own receiving of mentoring and coaching that we do. So my journey of becoming a CEO started way before the title came. And I want that to be a truth that you write down. The title of CEO does not happen the day you open the business. It's not the day that you get your first sale. CEO is a journey. And this title has what I consider the first truth. And if you can write this down, highlight it, put it on your laptop, computer, phone, car, that you are responsible for 100% of the wins and 100% responsible for the losses. You can't have one without the other. You know, a lot of people say, well, Char, you know, I got this, I've got that. And I say, great. But the first truth is that you are responsible for the wins and the losses in your company, in your teams, and in your clients. Let me tell a story about that. When you are starting out in careers, right? A lot of us achieved higher education. I was very fortunate enough to do an internship with Walt Disney World in Florida with marketing and business. And one of the things that I realized was that in those moments of being around these people that had these titles and had these responsibilities, that I had to increase my capacity, which meant that I had to be willing to go past what I normally do in order to get more, so I would learn more and ultimately fail fast. That is something very important in the first truth of be a 7-figure CEO, is that you need to fail fast quickly. And here's an example. When I was hiring my first couple of employees, you know, you're doing it because you have a need, you have a task that needs to get done. And we have fired many people during my 25 years of being a serial entrepreneur. And one of the things that I realized was that either I wasn't clear, I didn't have the right person on the seat in the bus, or that person really didn't know what they were doing. And I had to decide if I had time to coach them up. And so that was really hard. And a lot of times when you're a CEO, people, how do I say this? People will follow your actions more than your words. And I'm very fortunate that we have gone through probably 3 cycles of hiring and firing. And the team that we have now of 19 team members is definitely at that level of where I want to go and where I want to be. And 8 figures is literally based on those people that you put in those seats. And so I just want you to know that, you know, some of you guys are like, hey, sure, I'm just trying to make $60,000 a year, not trying to make $1 million a year. But guess what? What you do at 6 figures, what you do at multiple 6 figures, and what you do at 7 figures are all different. They're not the same. And so I just want you to know that what I had to learn and fail at is not necessarily what I had to learn and fail at now. Okay, so here's another story from my failure book. When I first got into entrepreneurship and opened up my first business, I spent $15,000 on my website. I had been working with the Four Seasons and Starwood in opening up properties across the country and the world. And one of the things that I learned from their CEO was that he had many, many years of wins to help him understand the value of what that title meant. And he taught me this one truth. You must know everyone else's job in order to know what you fail at and what you'll be good at. And so, guys, I'm not saying that you need to share, but you need to understand what a salesperson does, what a marketing person does, what an operation person does, because that's going to help you hire your replacement. So first truth, wins and losses, you're 100% accountable and responsible for that. What does that mean? That means you have to educate yourself. That means you have to train yourself. That means that you have to be able to have thick skin so you don't have your feelings hurt every time someone says no to you. Remember, they're not saying no to you, they're saying no to themselves at that time. And you probably either help them get to that no or help them get to the yes. You're part of that equation. All right, another quick story. So recently onboarded client has 20 years of a very successful business, 50 employees, just great and everything part of it. But he had to fire half of his staff in order for him to get to the next level of our launch of his product. And let me tell you, he cried the day he fired half of his team. And he said, Charlene, the only reason why I know I can tell you this and cry and be in pain is because I know you've done the same thing. And so if your clients are going to be these C-suite executives, if your clients are going to be these individuals that you need to coach up and support along the way. And in my coaching with him, I told him, I know the feeling you're getting through, but because you're the CEO, you can do hard things. Okay. And a lot of these things I'm going to say, guys, are words until you actually have a chance to execute on them. But there are one of the main principles that I learned in coaching Jim was that he, at the end of the day, said, this is the hardest role I've ever played. And so becoming a CEO, becoming this person is not an easy task. And if you are not here for the long haul, if you are struggling with that mindset, I have to tell you, it is going to leave you with some bumps and bruises, and you're going to have to just be okay with that. So how do you become that person? Second truth, who you are today is not the person you need to be in order to become a 7-figure CEO, because you have to hire people, you have to fire people, you have to build systems and processes, you have to learn what you're good at and trust other people, you have to let go of control. Those are all parts of number 2's truth, is that in order to get there, the person you are today is not that person. So earlier I said, fail fast. How many of us have failed in our business? If you have failed, put 1 in the chat. 2, if you have not failed and you've had just the perfect experience, because I will take my notes from you. So number 1's in the chat, number 2's, totally. Yep, it's okay, Tiff. That's part of it. Love that. Susan, yep, great. Love it. I want to see you, hear you. Christine, awesome. And one of the underlying causes for those failures is because you had only the knowledge of what you knew at that time to make that decision. Is that right? But when you came outside of that, Christine and Tiff and Susan, you knew that it was a mistake or a failure because you had that much more knowledge. So if you're going to be a different person, you know, one of the areas that we always stress to our clients is you have to be able to go through some personal development. You know, when I decided to open up a coaching company, it was not because I thought I was a coach. It was because my clients were telling me, Charlene, you are coaching us as CEOs. You are coaching us as business owners. You are coaching us as solo entrepreneurs. I never build a business because I think it's a good idea. I always build a business because someone else says I'm solving their problem. So look at your business. How are you solving problems for people? How are you bringing value to the table? How are you validating your own personal development? I have 2 mentors, and I will tell you shortly about their bio. The first mentor, he and I were in circles together, networking, and just always had some great conversations. Unbeknownst to me in meeting him, he had sold his first company for $1 billion to HP. And so mentoring me, he said, Charlene, I will do that all day for you because you really want to help people. And so he knew that my values drove a lot of my decisions. It drove a lot of my capacity, my opportunities, my 17 companies that I have today. And so a mentor, get someone, and this mentor is someone that's not paid. He literally does not let me pay him because of where he is. He only mentors a handful of people. So mentors are just those kind of people that you can go to with a question, who has a Rolodex, who'll invite you to those circles. All right, the second person in your wheelhouse has to be a coach. Even though I'm a coach to my clients, I have coaches that are already where I want to be. Okay, multiple 10-figure coaches are the kind of coaches that I invest in because that's where I want to be. I want coaches who emulate that, who have those same values. I was recently coached by a very, very well-known CEO in the space, someone that I really looked up to. And she had to handle a situation, and the way she handled it was not congruent to my values. And that was really hard because I felt like she had everything. But because the way she handled it, I said, we cannot be client relationship facing. Obviously, we're still in the same networks and we're still part of the same group. But the way she handled it didn't align. So you have to know your values, guys. To become coachable, you have to know who you are and why you're doing it and who that person becomes. I'm going to make this little ... Those values will change over time and over experiences. In the chat, if you can list maybe one of your values that has come because of failure, because of being in business, not necessarily something that you always have. I want something that's changed, because if you're not changing, it's really hard to grow, right? You can't increase your capacity because you're not growing and changing at the same time. So list those values. Doing the right thing for the client always. Yep. Sometimes that's different, right, guys? Sometimes we wake up with certain values and you go through a lot of failure really quick and you go, gosh, I'm going to change that value. Do better due diligence. Awesome, Leslie. I love that. That's really a powerful one that says that there's a contingency, right? You're able to adapt. I love that. Never make an offer when you don't. Okay, I love that, Christine. I love that. Trust your gut. Very important. CEOs, yeah, it's all about relationships. If you can't trust your gut, no one's going to trust you with their business. Write that down. If you don't trust your gut, if you don't trust yourself, no one's going to trust you with your business. Oh, abundance is our birthright. Yep. And when you got these values, guys, are you the same person today with those values, or did you change drastically? I love it. I always invite people to change. The faster you're willing to change, the faster you're going to get to the money you want. All right, story time. So in understanding really quickly, what mentors, what coaches, what I had to do in order to be where I am, I had to get clear on what I wanted. Okay, this is how the second truth gets built. That's the reason why I like to give you the truth and then show you the ways you can build that. I know a lot of times speakers and presenters, they don't tell you the how, right? And then you're just like, why doesn't she just say the how? Because that's their intellectual property. That's what makes them successful. That's why you pay the money to be coached and mentored, because they're giving that to you. Okay, story time. So this is terrible. I love to learn. I've always loved to be a student of learning. And I think I said that yesterday, and of course the first day, but I had to schedule that time. I read a book a day with the audiobook. If I'm driving, if I'm commuting, that's kind of my rule. If I'm not traveling that week, then I finish a book a week, because the knowledge I need is definitely more than, if I'm leading people. But I read certain books over. So I'm going to give you a couple of books that I use, because the book that I read at the first time isn't the same person that's reading it the second time. Okay. So one of the first books is E-Myth by Michael Gerber, because he talks about the technician in the business and the person working on the business. And a lot of you who are on the call that I have met through the last 3 days, some of you are the number one, right? Solo entrepreneur, you're doing it all. Okay, so that's an important book. Second is Good to Great. I actually built an organization that grew them from 40 to 120 employees with just that book alone. So Good to Great. And if you go online, you'll find the workbook that goes with that book. A lot of people don't know that exists. Number 3, personal favorite, Stephen Covey, 7 habits, but also there's the 8th habit, trust. And in the space of being a virtual business, trust has to be built with the most focused effort ever. And then the last book that I always reread, and this is just fun, just because it's something that I believe in, is The Goddess Warrior. As a female, we don't necessarily understand the power that we harness. And if you understand the power that you have, you become responsible for that. So the invitation to you is to understand the power you have in you, because you then become responsible and accountable. All right, third truth. Before I start the third truth, I had feedback in the chat. Has truth 1 or 2 impacted you? And if you can write in the chat which one, because it helps me with number 3 and how to tailor it. If 1 helped you or 2 helped you, put it in the chat. If it didn't, great. I need to do better. So please put that in there. Remember, lifelong learning. You want to fail fast. Oh, great. This is awesome. I love that. Audiobooks, I love real books too, because I write notes. I never give my books away because they have lots of notes and highlights. That's the one thing you move every time you get a new office. You're like, man, all those books are coming with it. You're like, yep. It's the heaviest thing I carry. All right. Third truth. I just want to make sure I'm always giving value to you guys. I think you guys have been here the last 2 days, and I always ask that question because I want to be serving you. The third truth. And this is where I have to be super vulnerable. I had to reframe the bad things that happened in my life. When we hit 7 figures, and now multiple 7 figures, and on our way to 8, 9, and 10, I had to reframe the bad things, bad clients, bad hires. I had to reframe what that meant, because I was still carrying the boulders in my backpack. So even though I wanted to go faster, farther, I couldn't, because it was still holding me back. So let's talk money. I love to talk about money, because partnerships and money and relationships are all part of that success. How many of you have had failures that you blame the reason why you didn't get that closed deal, that you didn't get that client, or you didn't make your sale happen? And if you're not honest with yourself, that's okay, because it's a judgment-free zone. But I'll tell you, this reframe truth is so critical, because you'll either keep repeating the mess or the failure until you reframe what it means and what it feels like. Okay, so here's something that attaches to this. So I remember the first time I had to hire an attorney to actually go after a client who did not pay their $11,000 bill. And I sat there in the room with her, and we went over the logistics. And she said, so Char, what's the driver? I said, I don't know. I've never had to do this. I've always had handshake deals with my clients. I've always trusted that they'll pay their bill. I've always trusted that, they do their part. I do my job in vetting them, making sure, I do everything I'm supposed to. And she said, well, it's going to cost quite a bit to go after this person. You're going to have all these, responsibilities and obligations. And I said, okay. I said, well, I've never had to do this before. Everyone's just done their part. And she invited me to look at the situation. And she said, sure, I understand what you want, but how can we do this so that this doesn't repeat itself in your business? And so she was a very intuitive attorney, I have to say. And she said, what does that look like? What do you want different from this? And I said, I don't know. And so of course I went on this journey of understanding her question. And the word reframe is now one of the words that I take with me in building the next layer of success in my companies. And so I had to reframe. So I had to tell myself and this client that I needed to put her in a place where I could forgive myself and her. So I'm going to have you write this word down. Ho'oponopono is a Hawaiian word that's all about forgiveness. Reframing is the invitation to forgive both yourself and the person, right? Because I had accolades about it. She's famous. Doesn't she know she needs to pay her bill? She's getting jobs with all these big companies. She's been on stage with J-Lo. She's been all these amazing people. Doesn't she know that she needs to pay her $11,000 bill? Right? Because I could sit there. How many of us can sit there and just give all the reasons why they should do what they need to do? All of us, right? So one of the invitations is to reframe it. Reframe. Oh, thank you, Leslie. That's so kind of you. Reframe and put forgiveness as part of the ingredient so that you can become that person. And reframing it is, well, taking 100% accountability for the wins and losses. What did that person teach you? What did that person help you realize? What did you have to learn and realize in that? And so I have to tell you, reframing is a super important key, because somehow in your storytelling of yourself, you're going to repeat that same story and it's not going to serve you, right? I never judge a result based on good or bad. I just judge it based on what result did I want? And what am I not doing? What am I unwilling to do to get that? So in the chat, reframing, how is that impacting you guys? 1, you're going to start reframing, or 2, Char, that's too hard. It's too heavy. And guess what, guys? It is. No judgment, but it is. It's really hard to reframe. It's really hard to forgive. It's really hard to take 100% accountability for wins and losses. One of the things, and I'll wrap up with number 4 here just in a minute. Yeah, Kim Allen. Oh yes, we love Kim. She's awesome. You guys are so lucky to have her speaking at this conference. Woohoo! That's awesome. She's the heart and soul of her business. She definitely is. So great. It's good to see you, Kim. One of the things, guys, as I built into truth number 4, is that we all have been there. As we go to the 8-figure level of businesses, you have to realize that I've been there, where you're struggling on your offer, figuring out your price, trying to figure out, your message. And so just know that we've all been there. Okay. 4th truth. You are your customer. The 4th customer. And here's what that means. If you're stressed out and overwhelmed, you're stressed out and overwhelmed. You're feeling like short, and you're feeling short and not getting anywhere. It's almost like a magnet type of approach. The 4th truth is you are your customer. So if you want to make more money and you want to get those things that help you get there, then you need to be willing to do that. That's just truth. That is just pure truth. One of the hard things a lot of times is that we want it all. Can have it all. You have your client, the person that you're trying to attract, is a reflection of who you are. So you have to become a better customer, a better client of other things that you're doing in order for that to increase. Yes. Do you want a client to pay $25,000? Guess what? You're going to pay $25,000. If you want to have a $100,000 client, you have to pay $100,000. That's just the universe. It's a magnet. It is exactly what you're attracting, is who you are. How many aha moments? Number 1, put it in the chat if this is exactly that you need to make right now, is become that customer. Number 2's that customer, and you are doing what to do. Number 3, trying to figure out, because I want to make sure figure it out. It's because you're learning. It's part of the process. All right. As I close, I want just one more thing, Haley, before I end my presentation today. John gave a patient to offer that we're doing a 3-day suite. You're definitely use code WENV to get $147 ticket. Yesterday, I made an invitation to our Monday group because it's not about masterminding. It's about being held accountable. So you actually get things done. So invite is there. So Haley, if you can chat, that's great. Today's offer and give is my time extreme. My why. I constantly find ways to have time freedom. So I value my time. I value my teams. My invitation to you is to reach out to me on email to sit down for a 20 laser coaching session on your business. And so my chat, and I've put my personal cell phone number there, minutes to laser on your business, money, on because that helps so much get clarity so you know where your target is. To do that with no cost. One of the things I up through my business is that I had to be able to learn these 4 truths, guys, are from my personal book of what it has been like to become CEO, what it has been like to have that title and responsibility. And so if you 20 minutes for a lady, please, we can schedule that. My time is to me and my team to protect it. When you're doing one summit, you give, as Haley gives, and she looking like many to give and to truths. I promise, guys. These are the live by and operate by, and I'm evolve in our wanting more. I want it because I'm putting smaller Herculean effort feel very easy. It's those small moments pull you to the bigger. I just want to thank you again for with give. I look so forward to meeting each one of you and being a part of your that would be great. And Susan, I see it. And thanks again, everyone, so much to be here and with you. That's my personal, guys. That is not, yeah, I have my business email, and that's great, and that's awesome, and I get it. But this is my personal email, so you're getting it directly from me. Because it's all about relationships. I want to give that really for having me here. Appreciate you. If you want to connect on LinkedIn, follow me, on me a message. I know some of you already. Thank you so much.